And we're live.
Okay, so we've finished with closed session. We have two resolutions coming out of that. First is moved by Councillor Bernardo, seconded by Councillor Buffett. Be it resolved, the council receives the in-camera staff report FS 2021-01 with respect to the Shelburne Police Service severance contract disbandment costs. And the council directs the treasurer to fund the 2020 police severance liability and the estimated future 2021 police severance liability as outlined in the report by utilizing existing police reserves, including the emergency services accommodation levy and the extra $170,578 recognized as additional 2020 general surplus at year end for the town. All in favor? That's carried. And the second motion moved by Councillor Wagner, seconded by Councillor Hall. Be it resolved, the council receives the information regarding wastewater servicing and allocation as presented by David Germain of Thompson Rogers. All in favor? That's carried as well. All right, on to adoption of the minutes from the March 15th, 22nd, and 25th council meetings. Can I get a motion to approve those minutes as circulated? Councillor Bernardo, seconded by Councillor Hall. Any discussion on any of those minutes? No? Period. Okay. All right, so that brings us to the planning public meeting. So tonight's public meeting is being held under Section 34 of the Planning Act, and it is to consider an application for zoning bylaw amendment for the lands known municipally as 105 Mill Street. The purpose and effect of the amendment is to rezone the property from residential type 2, which is R2 zone, to a new site-specific residential type 2 exception. The application is proposing site-specific provisions to permit a converted dwelling with a total of 3 dwelling units, 2 converted dwellings in the lower level of the dwelling, which is defined as a cellar in the zoning bylaw, within the existing single detached dwelling, and parking within the first 6 meters of the front property line for the purpose of satisfying the parking requirements. I'll ask the clerk for the method of notice for tonight's public meeting.
Notice of tonight's public meeting was advertised in local media sources as of March 11th, 2021. Notice has been posted on the town's website. Notice was also provided to property owners within a 120-meter radius of the subject property.
Okay. So we'll have a presentation by the town planner, and after that, there will be an opportunity for questions from members of council, as well as members of the public, and also an opportunity to provide comments. The clerk will also accept written submissions, and all submissions that are written or oral will be given consideration by this council prior to any decision being made. Steve, there you are. Do you want to walk us through the report?
Yep, thank you, Mayor Mills. I do have a few slides just to put on screen, which I'll share now, just to provide some of the highlights of the application. Did that come up okay?
Yep.
Mr. Mayor? All right. So the application is for a zoning bylaw amendment. It is file number Z2101, filed by Michael Leonardelli for the property located at 105 Mill Street. Just to provide a bit of an overview of the site location, you can see it's the middle property in a row of 3 homes facing the south side of Mill Street. These are 3 single detached dwellings. Opposite are 3 other existing single detached dwellings on the same street. And then to the west are similar single and semi-detached dwellings fronting on Victoria Street. And to the east is the Dufferin Oaks and related residential uses at the end of Mill Street and the associated parking area. I just put a couple of Google Street View images just to illustrate kind of the existing conditions in the front of the property and the existing dwelling. So it's a 1-story dwelling, and it's got a driveway out on the south side of Mill Street. The driveway is, long enough, not quite wide enough by the looks of it for 2 cars currently, but long enough certainly to park at least 2 vehicles in tandem. There is an attached garage with another parking space as well. And of course, there's a full, basement underneath the main level. So the proposal is to have, the main level of the dwelling as 1 dwelling unit and then 2 dwelling units created in the basement below that. The other part of this proposal is to widen out this driveway. So the property is fairly wide, and they would widen the driveway to accommodate enough space for 3 cars to park beside each other is I believe what's proposed. And that would be still within the maximum width, driveway width requirement of the zoning bylaw. This is to illustrate, property location on the address map, but the intent of the rezoning, very similar to recent rezoning on First Avenue, wherein a zoning bylaw amendment was approved to allow an existing detached dwelling to be used for 3 units, including 1 on the main level and 2 in the lower level. So that's what's proposed here as well. This table just compares the regulations of the standard R2 zone that applies to the property and surrounding area today with the proposed site-specific zoning. That's the subject of the application. So you'll see that all of the standards for the R2 zone are met. However, there's some general provisions here at the bottom that would be altered somewhat. This is not an exception, but rather how this requirement is proposed to be implemented. So the parking, which is a minimum of 1 space per dwelling unit for residential areas, is proposed to be provided via 3 parking spaces within the front driveway. And there would be a 4th space available within the garage as well as some parking behind those spaces given the length of the driveway. The maximum number of units in a converted dwelling by definition in the zoning bylaw is 2. So the request here is to increase that to 3 dwelling units. And then, as we know through previous similar applications, the permitted location of dwelling units in the zoning bylaw, again, we're not 100% sure what the rationale was for this standard. There's no building code rationale for it, but it does say that where a floor level is more than 50% below grade, that is considered a cellar, and the zoning bylaw prescribes that dwelling units are not permitted in a cellar, while any basement that has more than 50% of its vertical space from floor to ceiling above grade is considered a basement, and dwelling units are permitted in a basement. So the requested relief here is, it has a standard basement. The requested relief here is to allow the dwelling units to be located in that lower level, notwithstanding that it's defined as a cellar. That does not mean that they would not have to meet building code requirements. Those dwelling units would still have to be fitted for residential occupancy in accordance with the building code, and all the egress requirements, window requirements and so forth would still have to be met. This is just a sketch provided by the applicant. It does show the proposed widening of the driveway, where 3 parking spaces would be provided side by side in front of the existing 1-car garage. The house occupies, kind of the middle of the property, or the south part of the middle of the property, or the bottom part. Has a fairly deep rear yard, 64 feet, and a fairly generous front yard as well. So you'll see, I'm just going to stop sharing the screen. In my planning report, I've summarized the correspondence that's been received for this application. We have received a couple of public comments on the application since it was circulated and since the notices went out. I should read those into the record just for the public meeting. So the first is from Ross Johnson and Joan Johnson. It's dated April 8th, 2021. And in this letter, the comments read as follows. In reference to application under Section 34 of the Planning Act, as a resident on Mill Street, we feel that it is not feasible in a residential community to allow 2 basement apartments in a single home dwelling. 1 basement basement apartment would be fine. With 3 dwellings in one home, there could be 6 cars. There is only parking on one side of the street with no sidewalks. There's a lot of wheelchair activity on this street, as well as ambulance makes numerous calls to the Burnside apartments. There is another longer letter as well submitted by the resident of 108 Mill Street, Ms. Nancy Brown, and I'll just read that into the record as well for council. So it's dated April 6, 2021, and it reads as follows. Hello, council members, rezoning 105 Mill. I would like to give you a snapshot of Mill Street. The only entrance is from Victoria Street with a sign posted no exit, and ends in a parking lot that serves McKelvey Burnside Village, which houses 22 apartments, 6 of which are assisted living. This complex has the normal day-to-day traffic. Some residents drive cars, some have battery-operated wheelchairs, and others walk. They have visitors, deliveries, and emergency services. The parking lot is used for parking, patio, and exercise. Traffic from the village is not bumper to bumper, but it is constant with people, no sidewalks, and vehicles. As you enter Mill, there is a community mailbox serving the surrounding area. Some people drive, others walk to get their mail. Trucks, cars going to Dufferin Oaks or No Frills have mistakenly driven on Mill Street, ended up in the parking lot, only to be met by some residents in wheelchairs telling the vehicles it is a private lot. The vehicles must turn in my driveway to get back out to the street. Parking on Mill was finally changed to one side only, which is the north side. People came into my drive to turn so they can park. The original Dufferin Oaks had entry from Center Street with the idea any expansion would be around perimeter of property maintaining main entrance. Mill Street was never intended to be a through street and narrow in front of my property. It narrows in front of my property. So when vehicles, especially trucks, come in my drive on an angle, back up, come back in full length plus, and then back out so they can go back out to the street. In the past, people parked their cars in their garage, leaving the driveway free for visitor parking. Nowadays, garages are storage units, driveways are parking, visitors park on the street. On Mill, there are 6 homes, 4 have 2 cars each. Visitor parking is one side only. Fire hydrant, there's a fire hydrant beside my driveway, which should eliminate 1 parking spot on the street. It is my understanding that 331 Victoria at the corner of Mill and Victoria has been divided into 2 lots. I received notification there is an application to change 105 Mill Street to 3 units. In my opinion, if the lot of 331 Victoria builds a multi-unit dwelling and 105 Mill changes to 3 units, there will not be enough parking and traffic will increase. As a side note, several houses on Mill in the past have rented their basements. If you change the zoning for 1 home, how can you refuse the other 5 homes if they wish to rent? I appreciate it is recommended to have more housing density, but at what cost? In making your decision regarding 105 Mill, please consider the safety of the residents of this street, plus the people who walk their dogs, children taking shortcuts to school, little people learning to ride their bikes, because we appear to be a quiet dead-end street. And then there's just a PS at the bottom says, sorry for handwritten letter. Usually I utilize the public library, but due to the circumstances. So that's the 2 public submissions that we received. There were no objections to the approval of the application through the agency circulation. I guess just to respond to those comments briefly and comment on some of the planning rationale for this type of application. As we know, there's strong direction from the provincial policies, the growth plan, the county official plan, the town's official plan, to maximize opportunities for housing within the existing built-up area. And to do so, though, in a sensitive and compatible format within existing neighborhoods. So, not interjecting with large, out-of-scale housing types that wouldn't fit the character of the neighborhood. So we have had a number of these applications recently. They do help to contribute towards providing a mix of housing by increasing the rental housing opportunities. Although it is within existing single detached homes, it does generate some additional cars and parking potentially with the additional residential units. This is something that the town has supported because of those policy considerations recently in other locations. However, each application is considered on its own merits and based on the circumstances of the property location and the policies that apply. So we're here tonight to hear comments from council as well as the public prior to making a decision. So with that, I'm happy to take any questions regarding my presentation and the planning report. And a draft bylaw has been included in the agenda tonight. There is a recommendation in my report that's subject to receiving the comments tonight and any discussion. There could be a decision made either tonight or there could be one made at a later date, depending on council's deliberation on this application. So I'll pause there and turn it back to you, Mr. Chairman, for the public meeting.
Okay. Thanks, Steve. Councilor Bernardo. You're muted.
Okay. I had a long conversation with some of the residents on that street. It is a very dead-end street. It's not, in my mind, similar to some of the other locations where we have approved apartments. There's several things that disturb me in that particular street compared to other streets. The one lady that rode in there, she's quite correct. It is a lot of wheelchairs that come down that street because of the fact that it's right beside the McKelvey Burnside units where we have the disabled residents living along with some of the senior residents that do rent apartments within there. And their usage of that street it's the only way they have no sidewalks. So they end up driving down the street. The other thing, the traffic is heavy in that area for a dead-end street, which is surprising. Having lived in the past on a culvert cul-de-sac, the amount of traffic on that street is just almost double what I would have thought would have been on that street. And I'm not 100% sure putting more vehicles on that street is a very good idea at this point in time. And I agree that while he's providing 3 parking lots for the apartments there, nobody parks in the garage. I don't care what anybody tells me. Nobody parks in the garage. Junk goes into a garage, not cars. You're going to see at some point in time that 3 vehicles aren't the only vehicles. It's going to be potentially 6 vehicles because there always is 2 vehicles for most people to drive, especially if they're working couples or whatever. So you're going to see 6 vehicles, not 3 vehicles in that area. So that is a potential, instead of being 2 current vehicles at that house, there will be 6 vehicles at that particular location driving up and down that street, adding to the traffic on there. So those are sort of my concerns about this particular application. The biggest one being the type of personnel coming out of the Mel Lloyd Burnside complex. I know we have to approve it, but we don't in the past have that type of traffic coming down most of those streets.
Does that concern change anything from a planning perspective, Steve, that taking into account the type of residence that is at the end of that dead end street?
I mean, if traffic was a major concern, that would be kind of pushed over the edge by a couple of additional apartments in an existing home. I mean, that could be, a reason for either some further information or review or some concern. I mean, for this kind of development, the OP doesn't require or prescribe that a traffic study, for example, would be required. I guess the main thing for me would be, is there anything that we could, pass along to the applicant? I think Miss Jennifer Smith is one of the applicants is here tonight. Is there anything that we could ask for that would help to alleviate any of those concerns, or that the applicant could provide or submit to help alleviate any of those types of concerns? It seems like there are more concerns about the existing conditions. I guess the question is whether the application itself is the one that, or is exacerbating those conditions, or if those conditions are severe enough that they warrant, you know, a different outcome for this application than some of the ones that have been considered previously.
Could I have you put the street view photo back on the screen?
Sure.
Is that a big problem?
No. Did that come up?
Yeah. So looking at the sketch that was provided by the applicant, it's on page 37 of our agenda for anybody following through. Yeah, right there. So it looks as though the existing driveway is going to be extended to the east, right over basically to the front door. So just flipping back. Yeah, so that'll take it right over past that sort of large picture window at the front of the house. Okay, yeah, I just wanted to try to get a visual on the actual street view as to how big that driveway would be. Okay. Yeah, one of the things we looked at in a previous application not all that long ago, it was the stacking of parking. And you know, I guess with this proposal that in theory will eliminate the need for stacking vehicles because each of the 3 units essentially will have a dedicated parking space. And potentially, if there are 2 units per car, or 2 cars per unit rather, if the driveway is 18 feet long, could they potentially stack for each unit?
They could. So the zoning bylaw parking standards seem a bit light in that it only requires 1 parking space per unit. But the way that works is that parking space, 1 per unit, has to be at least 6 meters back from the front lot line. So in essence, the zoning bylaw requires 2 per unit because you have that extra 6 meters that doesn't count as a required parking space. So what they're proposing to do here is to have the 3 required spaces all more than 6 meters back from the front lot line. By doing so, they still have another, 6 meters behind all those cars where you could, in theory, park another row of 3 cars. So a driveway with capacity for a total of 6, plus the garage. And granted, the garage could be used for something other than parking. We don't generally require that they be kept free for parking unless there's a parking problem. So they could, in theory, have up to 6 vehicles in the driveway once it's widened.
And just the way I'm sort of conceptualizing it in my mind is that each lane, which is sort of designated again on page 37, would be set out for each apartment. And if any of the apartments or all of them had 2 vehicles, then they could stack one in front of the other and sort of juggle those depending upon who has to leave first in the morning. But at least each separate apartment would have sort of an unobstructed lane to park in, which is better than what we've seen in some other situations.
Yeah, it does provide perhaps more than some other applications.
Okay.
Could I interject something too as well?
Sure.
It's also our intent, because the apartments are small in the basement, it's our intention to really ideally would like to rent to single people, right? Because they're not large apartments. It's not our intent to rent to big groups of people. It's just even the wear and tear for us of maintaining it, not to mention goodwill to our neighbors as well. We want to be sensitive to the needs of the community as well. So we did, put the 3 driveways, but it's really our hope that we're just maybe the upstairs people would maybe have a car because of where we looked for a property that there would be walking distance for people. So it's, I think, a good move for us to build apartments where people can walk to the community things as well. So it's our hope anyways, that's what we're looking for. But there's, like you said, parking behind as well.
Thank you. Councillor Wegner.
Hi, yes, thank you. I guess my question or comment is sort of relates to the community member there that had the concerns about when do we, if we've already approved or allowed something of this nature, what is to say that, the other houses on the street don't apply for the exact same, allowance. And I guess we're already there because we have severed a lot that in a sense is basically backing onto Mill Street now, or the corner lot of Victoria and Mill. So I guess my comment would be, if we say no, what would be the basis of saying no? And then what does the applicant have legality wise in order to argue that fact that we've in a sense already given somebody within very close proximity to this house a severed lot that is going to then be built upon and have multiple units in that lot as well. Don't get me wrong, I have said previously in the past, and I still stand by that putting more than 2 units in a house is not a desirable thing for me, as it increases noise, it increases, again, as stated, cars, it increases garbage that is put out, to the curb, which may or may not be maintained. I mean, I'd like to hope that, the units are filled with people that are respectful and that the landlord follows up. But, we also know that that has not been the case in certain, situations. So, like I said, my question would be if, we were to say no due to the fact of, the home being at the end of this unit the street, and the street being small in general, what does that set us up for with the town of Shelburne, legally wise, or, can the applicant go to the Court of Appeals? Will it be overturned anyways? Just wanting to make sure that the community understands that sometimes our hands are tied as well when we are voting on these certain circumstances.
Yeah, I think your point's a valid one, Councillor Wegner. And I mean, these applications all have to be, adjudicated on their own merits, but with planning principles in mind. And Steve, correct me if I'm wrong, but for us to refuse an application, it really should be on sound planning principles, and not necessarily general feelings. Unfortunately, there is a certain amount of planning authority that's conferred to local municipalities, but it still is very much within the confines of broader provincial planning policy. And our decisions have to remain consistent with that planning policy.
Yeah, through you, Mr. Chairman. So I would echo that. I did include in my planning report, as I have in similar previous applications, the summary of the Planning Act wording, as well as the regulations approved by the province that the municipalities are required to use. There was, prior to the last round of amendments to the Planning Act, a little bit more flexibility or discretion for municipalities to determine where and how many accessory units would be permitted. The province, through Planning Act amendments, has essentially said you shall make provision for up to 3 units on a single detached lot, unless you can demonstrate, for example, it's on a septic system and it would be unsafe to do so, or there's a private well that can't supply adequate potable water, or there's a serious health and safety issue, or some kind of functional issue or public safety issue that would prevent that from happening in a responsible manner. The regulations say you can require up to 1 parking space per unit, but you can't require 2 per unit. It says that you can just determine whether you will permit units in a detached building or not, or all within the dwelling. But you do have to make provision in the zoning bylaw for up to 3 dwelling units on the property of a single detached dwelling. And so the level of impact, it really will depend, like the cumulative impact will depend on the level of uptake on this. And if everyone on one street does it, certainly that impact starts to become greater. So I have not yet seen a municipality where they've regulated, for example, and still complied with the provincial requirements. This is the maximum number of converted dwellings you can have on a street, for example, or percentage of the units on a street. Though if there is significant uptake on these and streets start to become overwhelmed by them, I think that could be a regulatory approach that could be considered and looked at comprehensively throughout the town. But for now, the process that you're seeing now, where each time somebody wants to do this, they have to go through a rezoning. In the fullness of time, when the zoning bylaw catches up with the current Planning Act requirements, it will just be a matter of building permit. And there's really not much we can do about that. We do at some point in time have to implement these requirements in the zoning bylaw, and we can apply certain standards, but they have to comply with the provincial standards, which set some caps on what you can regulate. So that flexibility is less than it has been in the past. And for those reasons, there is a strong argument for proponents of these kinds of applications that they're in keeping with the provincial direction on housing for fully serviced urban municipalities.
Councilor Donato?
On this application, at some point, we're going to reach our max sewage allotment for this time frame. We can start saying to people, sorry, we cannot accommodate you, so therefore we can deny those applications. That's one basis we can deny the application. I'm correct.
Yeah.
Second one is, with the fact that we may be getting close to what we currently have in allocation, can we put a time frame and say, no, we can't approve it tonight, but maybe later down the road we can approve it, depending on how much allocation we have left?
Yeah, those are conversations I've been having with the town engineer, because the remaining allocation or unallocated capacity we have right now is really the buffer between what we know is planned and committed and the unknowns. So who else is going to come forward and seek things that only require a building permit, for example, to add another unit within a home? You know, if somebody wants to add a second unit in their home, in most cases in town, that would only require a building permit. There's as of right zoning permissions for that. So we do, the official plan directs that some reserve should be held back to anticipate that. In the past, we've generally tried to maintain at least, you know, for any given year, a reserve of about 10 units, just to give that wiggle room in case there are a lot of those in one single year. And I think in allocating further capacity to more development, you know, the official plan basically says you should continue to consider holding some back for these kinds of proposals, because if it's in a place that only requires a building permit, right now there's really nothing that could stop it. You know, this is a different circumstance, because this one does require a planning approval, so you have a little bit more control over whether to allow it from an allocation perspective. But if it were only one second unit in the house, it would only require a building permit. And so it's important that we keep a bit of a reserve to anticipate that.
So going back to my question, with the fact that we are so tight currently on allocation, with the number of current requests on that allocation, can we say to the proponent, you will have to wait until we know exactly what we're doing with the current allocation that we have left?
Is that like specific to this application, like based on the current remaining allocation? Yeah.
Yeah, what I'm saying is specific to this application, due to the fact that right now we don't know exactly what we got in the way of allocation and what we got coming forward in the way of allocation, knowing that we are tight. Can we
Yeah.
say tonight to this application, please wait until we have enough information whether or not to request, to give you your request?
You can, in light of the upcoming discussions on that, and the special meeting that will be held, we may have a better understanding of that in a not too distant future. So, one option available to council would be to defer until we have that determined. That understanding is, is made clear on what the demands are, and then what the remaining allocation is, and how much of that remaining allocation will be reserved for this kind of proposal.
So that is my issue tonight as well, in saying yes to this particular application because of the special meeting we have on the 28th regarding the allocation. I would say this may need to wait until after the 28th, until we've had that meeting, and then we can maybe say yes or no.
So Steve, the three options available to us tonight, obviously, approve the application, deny it, or defer it.
Correct. And there is a recommendation there, but tonight is only for a public meeting. You could simply receive the report. There is no requirement to, make a decision to approve, refuse, or defer. You can provide some direction if you would like to have it come back at a future meeting date, if that's the council's wish.
Mr. Mayor, can I make a motion that we receive it tonight and bring it back at a future meeting after the 28th? I don't have in front of me the meeting dates.
I think after I survey whether there's any more public comment, that's something we can look at. So just hold tight for 1 second there,
Okay.
Councilor Donato. Ms. Smith, did I see your hand up again?
Thank you. I just wanted to, I guess, interject that it's our intent to do something also good at the same time, as we partner up with the town, because the town is in need of affordable housing, and it is our intent to align ourselves with that. The fact that these are small apartments, we've also taken into consideration the impact that it would have on the street as far as like water and all of that. So we've put like a shared laundry facility for all 3 units together. So I mean, we thought about all of these things when we were planning it out. So it's not our intent to come in and have a negative impact on the town. We hope that what we would do would also have a positive impact. So, we didn't design the units so that each one, had large water consumption and separate laundry facilities for everything. We thought about all of those things as well, as we did with the extended parking. And when we look for tenants, we hope that people are going to want to walk where they can, but we provided the parking just in case, and people are going to have company and that sort of thing. So, I mean, we want to have a positive impact on the street. And so I just wanted to say that we hope that we would be good partners with the community. So.
Okay. Thank you. Jennifer, are there any public members logged on?
We did have one resident register, Mr. Richard Lewis. I'm not sure if he has any comments to provide to council or not, but he is logged in listening.
Okay. Mr. Lewis, do you have any questions or comments?
Yes, I have a few questions and comments. I was looking at my lot line in my survey, and I observed that my water shutoff is in fact in the middle of the 105 driveway.
Okay, sir, whereabouts do you live, sir?
I live at 101 Mill Street.
Okay.
And my water shutoff for the town water is in the middle of that driveway, or to the edge of that driveway. And I look at the sketch that was provided, And I realized that that parking also goes right to the lot line. And there's very little distance between the lot line and the house. So I'm thinking, if that parking going to extend right to the lot line? And where would the snow removal go on that? I know snow is a big issue on this street. I've lived here for 11 years now. And we get the south side of the street gets the brunt of the snow as far as plowing goes, which creates another issue for me. My other issue, it's good that it's small apartments, but I have the noise issue as my bedroom window is right up against that lot line. Couple other notes that I have made is that this street has got a 4-inch only water main on it, and there is currently 5 Band-Aids on that water main. Increase pressure on that water. We just had the street repaved. Is that going to create a need to have this dug up and put new water main and sewer on it? Those are my questions and issues.
So just so I'm clear on my geography, are you directly to the west of this house then?
Yes, I am. That's correct.
Okay. So Steve, it seems to me from looking at the sketch that there's no proposal to extend the driveway any further to the west, right?
Our intent to do that, no.
Okay.
So yeah, the sketch does show that the driveway right up against would it be the east lot line? Yeah.
West lot line.
Or sorry, that's the west. And the zoning bylaw in fact requires that the side yard required for the house is also required for the driveway. So although the sketch shows it that way, in order to accommodate that, widening some of it would have to be on the other side of the driveway to maintain a grass strip between the lot line and the driveway. So a 1.2 meter or 4-foot grass strip between the driveway and the lot line.
So basically to the edge of the existing garage.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Well, I'm not. Yeah, it looks like the garage is shown at 4 feet. So yeah.
Our intent was to leave the driveway on that one side where it is, and then just move
Widen
it.
it the other way.
Yeah, the other way. Yeah.
Okay. Jim, not to put you on the spot, but any comments with respect to the concerns expressed over the water main?
Through your worship, it wouldn't put any more pressure on the water main. Pressure would remain the same, just you'd have more volume of water going through it. So I don't see that that's going to be a big issue with just a couple more units there. We did think about that when we did get the application in. There is a number of Band-Aids that are on that. But with an older iron duct tile water main, you kind of expect those issues over time anyway. We have those in a number of different areas throughout town anyway. Big thing with us is more so water hammer when you're flushing or fire use, that sort of thing. But no, for the purposes of the additional water, I wouldn't be concerned with that. So.
Anything else, Mr. Lewis?
That's all I have right at the moment.
Okay. Appreciate your comments. Thank you, sir. No other members of the public, Jennifer?
No, sir. There are no other members registered.
All right. Okay. So Stephen, in terms of timelines, if council does just receive the report tonight, is there any sort of timeline on the horizon within which we must make a decision on this one way or another?
I believe the Planning Act is 90 days from the date of application. So I think we're still a ways from that. So now that doesn't mean a decision is always made on a zoning application within 90 days. All that means is that if no decision is made by the 90-day mark from the date of a complete application, the applicant has the right to appeal the non-decision. I certainly wouldn't want it deferred indefinitely, but beyond the April 28th meeting wouldn't pose any problems that I can see from a procedure standpoint.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. All right. Councilor Bernardo, did you want to make a motion?
Yeah, I'd like to make a motion that we receive the application, notice of application tonight, and that we defer any decision on it until the first meeting in May.
Might be a bit slow.
Jennifer, what date is that?
Sorry, I was just looking up the calendar. The first meeting in May is May 10th.
Okay. Is there a seconder for that motion? Councilor Buffett. Any discussion on that motion? Councilor Bernardo, do you want to explain the rationale any further? Or?
Well, we have a special meeting on the 28th in which we are discussing allocation. We have limited allocation left, and it's not in regards to how those apartments are coming or whatever. The fact is that they're still flushing, and there's still toilets in them, and the sewage treatment plant is almost at capacity. We have a huge number of people coming forward with applications regarding usage of what we have left. Some of it is in regards to commercial. And we know in this community, we're in desperate need of commercial even more than we are for rental housing and for housing itself, as well as industry. So we have some serious decisions to make on the 28th in regards to who gets what. And I'd like to wait until after that meeting, and I think every member of council would as well, until we see what we can do with what we have left.
Councilor Buffett, a seconder. Did you want to make any comment?
I just want to say that I'd have to concur with Walter, obviously, because we've got so much to deal with right now, and we'll have a better idea where we stand once we get to that date, hopefully, and we'll be able to give an informed decision.
Okay. All right, so there's a motion on the floor. Is there any further discussion on that motion? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All in favor? Okay. Any opposed to that motion? Okay, so that motion's carried. So the report's received, and Ms. Smith, according to the terms of that resolution, the decision will be deferred to the May 10th meeting of council. So. Okay.
Yeah.
Great.
Thank you for your
Thank you very
time.
much.
Okay.
All right, so that brings us to public question period. Any questions, Jennifer?
No, sir, there are no questions this evening.
Okay. We have one presentation, and Althea Ali has been waiting patiently, I think, here. So.
Hi, everyone.
Hey, Althea, how are you?
Great. How are you?
Good, good. You're going to talk to us about the 2021 multicultural event.
Yes, I am. Can you see my screen?
Not yet.
Jennifer, I'm not really sure how to share it.
Down at the bottom, there's a taskbar. It says share screen. Click share screen and then select the screen. There
Can
you
you
go.
see it?
That's it. Yep.
Oh, awesome. Okay. Hi, everyone. I hope you're all doing well. I'd like to present today to Council the 2021 Shelburne Multicultural Event. The Multicultural Event is an inaugural event designed to bring together the cultural diversities in our community. The successful event has offered visitors an opportunity to enjoy arts, crafts, and food from our local schools, residents, and businesses. The event has grown over the past few years. Now in its fourth year, the event has a proven track record of bringing our community together. In addition, the event has brought significant media coverage to Shelburne and Dufferin County as a welcoming and friendly community. Feedback from residents, businesses, and political officials such as MP Cal Seaback and MPP Sylvia Jones have confirmed the success of the event and the benefits it's brought to the town and county. The multicultural event has been featured in local news as well as the Toronto Star, in the Hills magazine, Toronto Caribbean News, and was also nominated for the 2020 award and 2020 Arts and Culture Award. I'd like to take a moment to thank the community and community partners and sponsors who have supported the event over the years. Now, the 2021 multicultural event, it's going to look a little different this year. In recognition of Canadian Multicultural Day on June 27th, the Shelburne Multicultural Event would like to recognize residents, businesses, and organizations in Dufferin-Caledon with a proven track record in promoting diversity, inclusion, and equity. Those selected will receive a special gift along with a framed certificate, letters of acknowledgement from local government officials, and potentially also receive a letter from the Prime Minister's office. There will be a flag raising ceremony. For the flag raising ceremony, due to COVID, it will just be political figures and the media invited. And a virtual panel discussion and award ceremony on June 27th at 1 p.m. In partnership with Museum of Dufferin. Now, this year, an award committee was put together. The award committee consists of MP Cal Seaback, Deputy Mayor Steve Anderson, Caledon Councillor Joanna Downey, myself, and host of Celebrate Your Awesome, Jim Waddington, and community members Harleen Tour and Soha Solomon. This is just a snapshot of what the website looks like with our award committee, and a snapshot of what the Dufferin Caledon Multicultural Award poster looks like. It's the poster that has been displayed on the website as well as all of social media since March 1st, and has been circulating as well on the committee's social media. Now, this is a snapshot of what the nomination form looks like on the website, and a snapshot of what the multicultural flag looks like. And this year, the slogan is Unity and Diversity. Now, I'd like to ask that the flag be raised in Shelburne and request that the town promotes the event, the poster, the website, social media links, and as well as the nomination and form and the virtual ceremony on the town's social media and the town website, and also to declare the month of June Multicultural Month in Shelburne. And if I can request that the councillors share the event, if possible, on their social media, and further request if any councillors would like to nominate individuals, businesses, or organizations, please feel free to do so. And I've also put the links to the website, the social media page, and the Instagram link. Thank you all so much for your time. If you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer them.
Great, thank you. Any questions for Althea?
Just based on the presentation and the request, I'm just going to bring a motion. If we get a seconder today on it. What was not mentioned in the presentation was that the County of Dufferin, as you know, Mayor Mills, this presentation was done before County Council, and County Council has agreed to promote it on their social media and also to raise the flag in the month of June in honor and celebration of this particular event. So with that in mind, similar to the County Council, I'd like to bring a motion forward that I guess, adopts the request as set out in the presentation.
There's a draft resolution on the agenda that speaks to the flag raising between the dates of June 25th and June 28th.
If I could just speak to that, if you don't mind.
Yeah.
So June is also Pride Month,
Yep.
and since Jim Waddington is on the committee, what we had discussed was if I don't know if I think you guys do fly the Pride flag here, June 1st. So what we talked about is if that could be done June 1st to June 15th for Pride Month, and then from June 15th to the end of the month for the multicultural event or recognition of multicultural month.
Have we received a request yet this year, Jennifer, for the Pride flag?
Not yet, no.
Okay. Deputy Mayor Anderson, then did you want to reflect those dates then in your motion?
Sure, absolutely.
Okay. All right. Can I get a seconder for that motion? Councilor Fegan. So moved by Anderson, seconded by Fegan. Any discussion on that? No. Okay, all in favor? That's carried. All right. Thanks, Althea. Thanks for your continued work.
Thank you.
We'll see you soon.
Right. Have a great night, everyone.
You too. Take care.
Bye.
All right. Well, just about at the 3-hour mark, and I could use a quick break. I'm not sure about anybody else, but now that we're through all of our guests, why don't we take 5 or 6 minutes and be back here just a little after 9:30.